Good morning to you. Just after 9 a.m., I'm Jane Monreal. You are watching Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus. We have a full show for you this morning. We'll get to some of our local news here in a minute. But first, we want to talk to our special guest right now, North Carolina Senator Ted Budd, joining us now to discuss several significant developments from Capitol Hill. Senator, nice to see you again here on Live Impact News. I know it's been a busy month. Appreciate your time.
It has, Jane. Thanks for having me, Jane.
All right. I know we've got to talk about health care, securing a long-sought victory for the Lumbee tribe, as well as voting on this annual defense bill as well. But let's go ahead and start with health care, Senator. Because of these Affordable Care Act tax credits, the subsidies that are set to expire in less than a couple of weeks now, and that will affect up to 900,000 North Carolinians. Potentially doubling their premiums in 2026. What are you telling families how they can operate after if the subsidies do expire without a vote?
Well, let's remember in North Carolina, 81% of people are very satisfied with their current health care plans. I mean, we'd like all prices to go down. We're working on that. We've got the right agenda. But 81% of the people are happy. And the ultimate goal is to have quality health care at a reasonable price. But if you go back to 16 years ago, almost to the very week, that's when Obamacare passed. It was called the Affordable Care Act. But if you have to subsidize it, which they had to do a few years later, it was never affordable to begin with. So essentially the Democrats broke health care 16 years ago. They propped it up with subsidies, and then they went and set the dates for those subsidies to expire. That's what's happening. It's not the COVID era Biden bonuses that people are talking about right now. Those were put in for a short-term period of time, and of the increases, only 3% of that is due to the Biden era COVID bonuses. So that's insignificant. But what we do, we have solutions, and that we're working on these, and that is buying insurance across state lines, short-term health care plans, price transparency. So when you go to the doctor or you're admitted to the hospital, you actually have a menu. You know what the prices are. We think those are great things. And what Obamacare did is it sent money to the insurance companies. And that's why if you look at their stock prices over the last 16 years, they've gone up, up, up. So they've gotten wealthy at the expense of American taxpayers. It was a horrible system of bad incentives, and it's really caused healthcare to get out of reach for so many people. So with those 19% of people in North Carolina, we want to get better incentives in the system. We want to give them health savings accounts so the money gets sent to them and not insurance companies, and that they have choices for themselves and for their families.
And so once this expires at the end of the year, what does day one, January 1st, look like for North Carolinians then, if there's nothing in place?
Well, for most of them, they're going to be just fine because 81% of people are fine. The COVID era Biden bonuses are what's expiring. That's 3%. And I would say most people in the state are going to be just fine.
Okay. You've introduced the Compete Act, which you and Senator Cruz have talked about. And you've hinted at what that includes. Break that down when it comes to things like prescription drugs, maternity care, pre-existing conditions.
Well, when it comes to short-term insurance plans, we want to give people an option. They can buy them across state lines. They can have 364-day plans, and then they can continually renew them. And they can use what fits for their families. Pre-existing conditions, it's part of we absolutely have to take those into consideration. There are people with long-term comorbidities, for instance, diabetes, type 1, type 2. We have to make sure that those are included, and I think that's something that all healthcare, anything that we do in the future, has to make sure that we take care of.
All right, and then when it comes to prescription drugs, again, that is across state lines?
Well, that's not necessarily across state lines. I mean, that just gives people the full market options. But I do have some biologics, biosimilar legislation. I mean, those are things for for MS or arthritis and other very devastating diseases. And those medications are so expensive. They can be thousands and thousands of dollars per month. But if we introduce my Biosimilars Act, what it does, it allows us to speed the process in the FDA to approve those, and then that introduces more into the market. And we've seen cases where biosimilars have been introduced, And by the way, North Carolina is a great place to make these. We've got a major industry around Raleigh-Durham area and across our state for biologics and other pharmaceuticals. But if we introduce biosimilars, we can save thousands and thousands of dollars per month per patient. And I think that would be a great thing for our country and for North Carolinians.
Absolutely. When can we see some kind of bridge or the next move into what our healthcare system will look like then?
Well, we're introducing options every week. I've introduced the biosimilars medication already. These would be teed up for a vote. We're still in the 119th Congress. That'll go through the end of next year. So that's our focus when we start in January. We're going to be looking for solutions to introduce these to the American people. But remember, in the Senate, it takes 60 votes to get most of this done, unless we do it through reconciliation. And then it has to be a certain amount of or types of legislation that passes on a 51 vote legislation. So again, it's a very narrow window if we use the 51 vote rule. It's a broader window if we use 60 votes. So we'd love Democrats to join us on some of these things because we think they're great for our country. It puts more money in people's pocket and it lowers the price of health care and it increases the quality and options that people have, and that's the Republican goals.
Another good news for North Carolina, of course, is the passage of the Lumbee Fairness Act, part of the defense bill. Wow, has this been a long time coming or what?
This has been 137 years of seeking recognition. They were partially recognized in the 1950s, but this gives them full recognition. These are 60,000 great individuals. They're patriots. So many of them serve in our military. Most of them are in Robeson County, and I am just so proud of this. Senator Tillis did great work, and everyone saw, I mean, this was other tribes around the country having to make sure that their member of the Senate understood this. But I am so proud of getting this passed. This is great news. President Trump will sign it into law today. And this is great news for North Carolina and the 60,000 individuals that have been pulling for this for a long time.
Yeah, why did it take such a long time? And why on the defense bill rather than a standalone?
Well, it's a must-pass bill because for the defense of our nation, and I think because there's so many great patriots that serve in our military from the Lumbee tribe, I think it's very relevant. But it's again a must-pass bill. It's the right time, and you have to find the right vehicle for that legislation to travel on, and this was the right vehicle at the right moment and for the right tribes. But there's a lot of competing interest. Other tribes that may feel competitive, but again, most of the tribes out there were very supportive all around the country, and we're very pleased with that.
Yeah, this defense bill authorizes $765 million now for North Carolina military installations. What do you think is going to have the biggest impact for the Tar Heel State?
Well, I mean, America looks to their 911, and that is right there at Fort Bragg with our 82nd Airborne. Our Special Forces are based there. We've got pay increases for our troops and for all of our warfighters. This allows them to purchase new systems to get rid of outdated systems, upgrades for our aircraft, better facilities, pay raises, and I mean, this just does so much to invest for us. We have to deter China. I mean, that's not just for North Carolina, that's for the whole country. That's one of our great adversaries in this age, and so we have to make sure we continue to invest in our military so we can protect our freedoms here.
Yeah, you champion an amendment that will seize Iranian weapons and then send them to U.S. military partners. Explain how that works and why it matters.
Well, we see if they're passed direct from Iran or through proxies like Houthis, if those are captured on the sea or over land and shipping, we can capture those and send those to our allies, those that value freedom in the Middle East and around the world. That way they're not just laying dormant, they're not just destroyed, they're put to good use for the purposes of freedom. And so that makes it clear. It had been bogged down legislatively for that to happen, and this fixes the problem.
The NDAA also does include language that eliminates DEI initiatives and critics saying that diversity is the strength of the military. How do you respond to that?
I would say we want a meritocracy, those that are the best and believe in the values of our country. And what we're seeing since the beginning of the Trump administration is recruiting is up. The Marine Corps has always hit their numbers, but the other branches have had real struggles because they've lost their focus on what the military is about. And so we're seeing people from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of racial diversity. We're seeing that still. But the focus is not diversity. The focus is lethality for our military. So it's still one of the great levelers of society in the military. And I'm so proud of what the warfighters do, but let's keep the focus on protecting the freedoms of our country. And let's make sure that we're lethal and that we're strong. And if we focus on that, you're going to have people from all sorts of backgrounds, whether it's in our academies, or whether it's enlistment, or whether it's at an officer level or ROTC. These are the best and the brightest. They come from all sorts of backgrounds, but let's remember that the focus is on military strength.
I want to change gears right now. Something reported out of Washington, of course, former Congressman Mark Wheeler, nominated by President Trump back in April to now 8 months later, still waiting for a nomination or a confirmation hearing, rather, to be the ambassador at large for international religious freedom. Is it true that you would vote for him if the vote were to come up to the floor?
If he's on the floor, I would do that favor for the president. He's asked me to do so. But I would also say, let's, to the committee, which I'm not on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, do your homework and look closely. But let's look at the purpose of that ambassadorship and look at the body of my work. I helped to get the hostages home. I've worked on Nigeria. I've supported religious freedom around the world. It's been a significant part of my time in the Senate for the last 3 years. If you look at my theological training, I've been to seminary. I was involved in campus ministries in college. So it's obviously important to who I am and what I do here in the U.S. Senate. So I would just say the role is very important, and we need a serious person that fills that role.
I want to understand the legislation that related to the Roeder Act. You're one of the original supporters and co-writers of that, and help our viewers understand where that's from and where it stands today.
That was Ted Cruz legislation on the Commerce Committee. And if you go back to January 29th of last year, the horrible accident in the D.C. area between a Black Hawk and a jet coming in, an American Airlines aircraft coming in from Wichita. It was a Charlotte-based flight crew, and our hearts are broken. Those families were with us yesterday in the committee as we talked about air traffic safety and passenger safety. This requires ADS-Bs to be turned on, which is a satellite signal that sends out from an aircraft, and other aircraft, if they have ADS-B in, are able to receive it. So there's been a habit of turning that off from our military in complex airspace, such as the DC metro area. And this requires that to be turned on so that those aircraft can be identified and located. It requires a certain amount of coordination between the Department of War and air traffic control. So it's great legislation. It will improve passenger safety. And I wish we'd have had that in place over a year ago, and we would have had 67 lives saved.
All right. Senator Ted Budd joining us for a special conversation on a lot happening as we close out 2025. Thank you very much. Happy holidays to you, and we'll see you in the new year.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be back on Live Impact News on WCNC+. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Time right now is 9:17. We have a live feed coming out of Virginia right now. This is the governor-elect press conference being held to talk about cost savings for consumers. Let's go ahead and just listen in here for a minute on Live Impact News.
I'm going to open it up to questions. Generally speaking, I will start, but defer over to my General Assembly colleagues for questions that might pertain more to General Assembly. I'm going to start over here. Michael.
The topic about tax laws. A couple sessions ago, the governor threw out the idea of expanding the sales tax to some services. Madam Chair became quite the cheerleader for that. Didn't work out this time. There's a bill being drafted, as I understand it, to address transportation needs in Northern Virginia, transit across the state, metro system in Northern Virginia. And part of that would expand the sales tax for services, some services, and lower the actual sales tax rate from 2.3 to 2%. Is that something that you could support? Is that something that Madam Chair could support?
Well, I'll begin, and then I'll turn it over to the chairwoman if she'd like to comment. As an issue of principle, and the entire reason that we are here today is that we want to ensure that Virginians can afford to live, work, build families here in the Commonwealth. That also means that we need to invest in the infrastructure and the people that make our Commonwealth great. So as a general overarching principle, recognizing the need for continued transportation investments, I think there are conversations to be had without the fully finished, ready for primetime 2026 bill text. I won't necessarily dive into the specifics, but certainly recognizing the challenges our Commonwealth is facing and the need to ensure that we continue to be competitive. I think there are important conversations to be had, and certainly the bills put forward in prior General Assemblies, I think, were worthy of broad support. Madam Chairwoman.
Yes, and I agree with Governor-elect Spanberger. This is something that we really are going to have to consider, but you also have to consider the fact that we have fiscal challenges and that we have some top priority issues. For one, Medicaid, we have child care, we have our housing issues.
All right, you're listening to a live press conference there out of Richmond, Virginia, with their governor-elect, one of many to come. All right, we're going to switch gears here once again at 9:20 because we are now in the holiday season. It is supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, but for many people, they're also very stressful. So between your busy schedule, your work, and the families coming in, oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. We wanted to get together and talk about how you can handle your stress. So we're joined right now by licensed clinical social worker. I wanted to get that right. Sultana Nosrati. Sultana, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you, Sultana. From Novant Health. She's joining us this morning to help us manage what this season is about, what it should be about. It should be better. All right, Sultana. Why do the holidays tend to be so stressful?
I think there's a lot of expectations. People look outside, especially now with social media, to see how other people are doing it. And so naturally they compare and contrast and often find themselves wanting. There's also the internal stressors for our parents, our families, our kids. But for a big section of at least the people I work with, a lot of the people that used to make the holidays special and feel really good have passed. And so now they're having to face the holidays without a big part of why the holidays were such a wonderful time for them.
Sure, those major life changes look a lot different around this time of year. We forget if we haven't been through the experience ourselves. So if we are going through that, or if we are close to someone who is going through that, what do we do to navigate that space?
So when that happens, we often, especially the general public, will feel kind of awkward about how to approach that person who's lost someone. I say include them, but also let them know that there's no real pressure. And for those of us who have lost someone, a good idea is to let the people who want to include us know what our limits are. So yeah, I can come to this, but I can't do that, or I can come and I can only stay for this much. And I think that can be very helpful. I would not recommend doing what a lot of people want to do, which is isolate, because it's not helpful, especially if you're dealing with depression on top of grief. It's a really good idea to get out there. It doesn't have to be a lot of people. It could be just one other person you spend time with. I think that could be very, very helpful.
What does holiday stress look like for, how does it typically show up for people? I know like there are people that do different things, but what does that look like? Or what are the warning signs that maybe we should be watching out for with our loved ones?
So a lot of times people feel like they're not making sense. They're running around, they start one thing, then they start another thing. They feel like they can't get things done. Their speech kind of speeds up. You're noticing there's unusual behaviors or attitudes that they normally wouldn't have that all of a sudden you're seeing. I think a lot of that has to do with, again, unreasonable and unrealistic expectations. We set them for ourselves and we tend to set them for others. So it's really important to get very honest, especially with the people you love, who you'd be buying these things for anyway, about what we can and can't do. And I think the one thing we're all missing is grace. We're very good at giving it to others, especially people we love. We wouldn't say these things to them, but we tend to say really cruel things to ourselves and set really high standards. So the way to get grace is to think of what would you say to a loved one if they were dealing with the level of stress that you're dealing with. And I think you'll find a much healthier response.
Are there any physical symptoms that show up in a stress when you're stressed out?
For everybody, it's different. Some people, they don't want to get out of bed. For others, they are taking on a lot. So again, you see a lot of the running around and not really getting anything done. People who don't normally snap at little things will snap at little things. Again, it's the happiest time of the year, but it's also the time where you see a lot of, the rush and the anger coming out. So if you're noticing that you're feeling elevated, my best advice is to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and reevaluate what's important. Yes. And get some rest. You don't have to finish everything at once. Whatever you do, if you're doing it with people that you love, it's going to be good, and that's enough.
And that goes back to having grace and giving yourself some grace, right?
Exactly.
All right, we're going to take a deep breath. What are some of the other practical tips that we can do today? I know my sister's been wrapping presents. I know, my mom's been going, running errands, getting food items, forgetting it and going back to the store. And that, takes another half hour out of her day. What can we do right now?
So, for example, if you forgot something, ask yourself, will the dinner be completely and utterly not good if I don't go out there and get it? And if the answer is probably not, then don't do that. Don't take on extra tasks because you're trying to achieve perfection. Because again, that's not realistic. And the truth is, when you look at the holidays back, even if you look at holidays you've had before, it's not what you ate or what you got that you remember. It's how those people made you. It's how you felt. You always remember how you felt in the holidays. And the real purpose is to be around family. So it really doesn't matter what present you got or how much food you had on the table, what you had on the table. So do the best you can. I remember I had an instructor years ago who told me you have to understand the concept of what's good, and that's enough for now. And I think if we thought about it that way, we'd have a more balanced perspective of what has to happen and what can be let go.
That sounds amazing. All right, one last thing. Although it is about being with the family and friends and loved ones, some of those family dynamics can percolate. How do you navigate that?
Well, it's, again, having a talking to yourself, knowing how to avoid trigger points. Like if politics is a trigger point, don't talk about politics. If someone starts talking about politics, and you have a child be like, oh, did I tell you what Johnny did today? So you kind of divert the conversation away from these hot topics. It's also telling yourself when you recognize that you're getting overwhelmed or you're seeing that things are getting tense, and it's a good idea to maybe pick up your dish and take it to the kitchen so you're not continuing to be part of the tension, or just leaving early. Making up an excuse. Whatever you need to do that makes you feel comfortable, I think would be good. But again, when you're talking about family members, you set it up in advance. So if I'm going to see my mother, my father, my family, I'll say, okay, listen, these things off topic. If we want to have a nice dinner, we're not going to do these things. And that tends to work out pretty well because everybody wants to have a good time.
All right, that's good. It sounds like it's a team effort. Be proactive
It
about
really is.
what you want to work on or talk about and not work on or talk about. So some real good tips there. Appreciate your time. That was really great. So as we continue through the next couple of weeks now, we're going to handle it and hopefully have a better holiday season.
Thank you.
Sultana Nosrati, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Live Impact News.
Thank you for
Happy
having
holidays.
me. You too.
And we'll be right back on WCNC Plus. Back here now at 9:30 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. If you were with us a couple of weeks ago, we started following the trial of a Massachusetts man out of Dedham, Massachusetts, same place where Karen Reed only months ago was also tried for the killing of her boyfriend. But Mr. Brian Walsh has been convicted of killing his wife, the murder of his wife, Anna Walsh, on New Year's Day back in 2023. And although her body was not found, the sentencing is taking place right now. And apparently there are some letters from sisters. Let's go ahead and listen in on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
But I'll have you stated on the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth is requesting that the defendant be sentenced to a series of consecutive sentences on the charges to run from and after his federal case, in which he received a sentence of 37 months in February of 2024. The first charge that the Commonwealth would seek an incarceration component on is count 003, and that the defendant be sentenced to 2.5 to 3 years. The second charge would be that he, on the misleading 002, to run from and after 003, that he receive a sentence of 18 to 20 years. And that the third charge, the murder, in the first degree, that the defendant be sentenced to life without the possibility of parole to run from and after 003 and 002. And Your Honor, if I may be heard in our argument.
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor. When you look at the facts of these three charges, each one calls for a harsh penalty. If you look at the illegal conveyance of a body, the defendant did not just, the person that he illegally conveyed was his wife and the mother of his 3 children. And he did it by removing her remains from the family home and placing them in buckets, in garbage bags, in dumpsters around the Commonwealth. He denied, as you just heard, her family the opportunity to have any customs or burial. There is no grave, there is no memorial. And he did this all in an effort to destroy evidence. On the misleading component, Your Honor, while we do mention the potential of probation, we put that in there only as data so that you understand the efforts that went in to trying to find Anna based on the defendant's series of lies. These lies were all done in an effort to cover up his crime and destroy evidence. We're also, while we put in that, we are not seeking a probation sentence, but we put it in there so the court, if it wanted to contemplate one, understood there was an option to do it that would prevent the defendant potentially from trying to profit from this.
So the only mechanism for me, as I see it anyway, the only mechanism for me under the restrictions of state law,
Yes, Your Honor.
it's an either-or situation. That is, either I incarcerate him for an additional period of time, either concurrent or consecutive, or I put him on probation following the life sentence, or maybe it even starts today. But the only way that restitution can be achieved on count 2 is through a probationary sentence. So I don't think there's any other mechanism for me doing that. So I don't know how you achieve that goal if without a probationary sentence and mandating it as a condition of probation. And so I want the Commonwealth to be clear with me. You're making note of it in passing, but you are not asking me to put him on a probationary sentence. Is that correct?
We are not, Your Honor. It is data that you can use in order to determine the scope of his lies in which the police relied on them. And you can see the costs that went into investigating the disappearance of Anna Walsh, but we are not asking for probation on this matter.
And the same question with regard to the issue of restitution that I heard rumblings of yesterday.
Yes, Your Honor.
Same result?
Same result. It is, again, it's data for you in determining your sentence, but we are not asking for it.
All right. Just wanted to be clear on that.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then on the murder, again, this was the murder of his wife and the mother of his 3 children. And the cover-up of this murder, Your Honor, deserves some analysis. If you look at the first internet search, which occurred at approximately 4:52 a.m. on the 1st, how to dispose of a body, and how they evolve into eventually 11:24 a.m., how to dispose of body parts after a murder, it appears the defendant at this point in time is committed to getting rid of evidence of the crime. And it leads to the shopping sprees later on that night at Lowe's and CVS and Stop and Shop. However, if you look at the internet searches on the 2nd, how to dismember a body, and is a hacksaw the best tool to dismember a body? It's a reasonable inference he hasn't started the action yet. And it results in the second shopping spree to Home Depot that afternoon, which means that Anna Walsh has been dead in that basement for over 24 hours. The same home his children are in, the same home the babysitter's at, the same home his mother has come to visit. And in the evening between the 2nd and the 3rd is when the dismemberment occurs, and on the 3rd we see him going to dumpsters, getting rid of the remains. In the defendant's sentencing memo, and I want to note, the defendant was represented by 2 excellent lawyers who are titans in this industry, who I have the highest respect for. They say the Commonwealth's recommendation is inhumane. I suggest that that's not the appropriate word choice, because if we were to look at that word, I would suggest that that describes the defendant's actions. and the depravity of his actions of murdering his wife, dismembering her, and getting rid of her remains by throwing her away like garbage. The question might become whether or not this is a cruel and unusual punishment that the Commonwealth is recommending. And I direct your honor to one case. It's Cepulonis, Cepulonis versus the Commonwealth, 384 Mass 495 at 497. It's a 1981 case. To reach the level of cruel and unusual punishment, the punishment must be so disproportionate to the crime that it shocks the conscience and offends the notion of human dignity. I don't know if that's possible in this case, Your Honor, because human dignity was completely offended by the defendant's actions and how he treated his wife, how he disposed of her, and how he robbed her family and friends of the opportunity to bury her. There is no death certificate. The church will not allow a funeral to go on at this point in time. We are working on trying to work with the ME's office to see if we can get a death certificate to issue now, based on the conviction and based on the plea. And when I looked behind me after the closing arguments, I realized that that was the closest thing that those people had come to a wake, because they never got together to mourn her. And that happened 3 years later. So with that, Your Honor, the Commonwealth does make a punishment that we recommend to you. We recognize it's harsh, but we think it's appropriate based on the facts. And I appreciate your time, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll hear from the defense.
With respect to the first-degree murder conviction, although we made it clear from our memorandum that we do object to a life without parole sentence based on state and U.S. constitutional grounds, based on the Eighth Amendment, we understand the court has no discretion. With respect to indictments 2 and 3, you do. I think inhumane is the right word, respectfully. To sentence someone to prison posthumously to send a message is humane. It's dehumanizing him. Regardless of what happened in this courtroom, regardless of the convictions, regardless of what anyone believes about this person, he is a human. He is a father, he is a son, and he has been a friend to many. The life sentence is mandatory, but to do consecutive sentences, I think, is inappropriate and is inhumane. Anytime there is a death, a murder, a loss of life, it is horrible, whether it's a loved one or a stranger. And the legislature has provided, regardless of our disagreement, that a life sentence without parole is mandatory. But that does not negate that he is a human being. And I don't think sentencing him to on and after time is appropriate. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. What he was convicted of were atrocious acts. We've heard from her family, we've heard from her friends. Their pain is unimaginable, and I'm not demeaning that, but I have the opportunity to speak for Brian today. And I'm asking the court to sentence him in line with the guidelines and with the purpose of sentencing. Punishment, justice, prevention of future crimes, consecutive sentences, that's excessive and it doesn't meet those needs. So I'd ask the court to adopt the defendant's sentencing recommendation.
I just want to put on the record that the defendant, in making its argument with regard to the inhumane aspect of any consecutive sentences, cited to a case in its brief, Donovan. Donovan does not apply to this case. As an initial matter, Donovan related to a larceny involving a single act that resulted in 7 different victims being victimized. The SJC, that was, I think, a 1985 case. The appellate courts in Massachusetts have long since distinguished Donovan, even in the case of larcenies, which is not the case that's before me, to recognize that even Donovan relates only to a single act case and not one with one purpose, as you could argue there was one purpose here, but more than one discrete offense. So I'm not persuaded by the logic of Donovan.
You are watching the sentencing taking place for convicted murder of his wife, Brian Walsh, happening out of Dedham, Massachusetts. We'll be right back on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Time right now is 9:44. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. My next guest live in studio right now is a Charlotte local who's making waves on the national stage in front of your eyes, Angel Garrett, or I'm calling him Angel Garrett. After competing on Hallmark Channel's reality series, Finding Mr. Christmas, and this is a show where 10 men actors vie for a coveted role for the 2025 Hallmark holiday movie. Angel, wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
Congratulations, first of all, of making it to this show, and thanks for coming in Live Impact News. How are you?
For having me, Jane. I'm excited. I made it to the finale. I'm a Latino representing my culture, my people, and also representing Charlotte. I love this city. I love this town, and I'm back. I'm back for good.
I love it. So where are you from? ¿De dónde es?
I was born and raised in Venezuela, and I immigrated to Charlotte, North Carolina in 2002.
Oh, how'd you end up here?
My mom has family, she has siblings, and she wanted to be near them. And then my sister also came a year prior to us, so she wanted to be reunited with her.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So how long have you been acting? What gave you the acting bug?
Oh, not a lot of people know this, but I started modeling in 2010.
Oh.
And then in 2011, the Hunger Games came to Charlotte. And I did background for like a month, and I fell in love with the industry, the set, everything about it. And I knew that was my thing, my addiction. I knew I needed to be an actor. So the next year, I moved with my wife to Los Angeles, and I learned everything about it. And I've been acting about 13 years, the same time I moved to Los Angeles.
Oh, fantastic. So it looks like you got work right away. I can see why. How did you come to Finding Mr. Christmas?
Lindsay Lyles messaged me on Instagram, and she was, hey, I feel like you're going to be a great person to be on this show. You should audition. And I'm not a fan of reality TV. I feel like they're cutthroats. They're just drama, and I'm against drama. I'm against bad energy. But then I gave it the benefit of the doubt. I researched and fell in love with the whole brotherhood, the whole Hallmark life, family, love, just Christmas. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a chance.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try. So I auditioned. I had to send 2 auditions, and we had 5 interviews, background checks. We did a bunch of stuff just to get in the show.
I bet. So what does the audition like for a reality show such as this?
So we had to memorize 2 scenes. Each scene is a page and a half. And my wife and I just read through it. We filmed it and we sent it. They got back to me. It's like, we love your tapes. We're gonna send you a bunch of information so we can do a background check. Then I had a first interview with Lindsay Lyles. We talked for like an hour and a half, and then they send me a psychologist to talk to me just to make sure I'm not crazy.
Right. Yeah, you need this for a reality show, I suppose, right?
It's also Hallmark. They want to make sure
That's
whoever
true.
comes to Hallmark, it's not going to be someone that needs help.
Okay. Now, are you a Hallmark movie fan yourself? Because I do love these Christmas Hallmark movies.
I am. I
nice.
actually needed to learn English when I came to this country, so I watch a lot of Hallmark movies.
Wow, that's great.
And one of my favorite movies that came out recently, about 3 years ago, it's A Biltmore Christmas, and it was filmed in
Yes.
Asheville, if
Yep.
you're familiar with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we remember that movie. Wait, did you say you were in it then?
No, I'm not, but
but you-
Christopher Polaha is the lead actor, and he came into the finale, and I met him on the show,
Okay.
and I told him, I'm a fan of yours. Like, I love that movie.
Yeah, that is great. So it looks like you are thrust into a bunch of, once you do make the show, right? You are thrust into a bunch of scenes
Yes.
with working actors in what would be like a typical Hallmark film. And so what was that experience like?
That experience was just out of this world. I didn't know what to expect coming into this show, and just meeting all these wonderful men from different backgrounds. It blew my mind. They are talented. They brought something different, their own essence, and right away I knew I had to work hard and bring my own essence, my own culture, and try to stand out in a way without letting my ego out. We still were cheering for each other. We were happy that each person was winning a challenge and whatnot. So it was a wonderful experience. I will always keep this in my heart and cherish it forever.
Okay,
Yeah.
so without giving any spoiler alerts, what can you tell us about making it to the, last whatever, I don't know how many. You already made it to the show, the only
Yes,
10
it's-
guys, so that's pretty.
It's 8 episodes.
Okay.
And on each episode, you have 2 competitions: a festive face-off and a Star Quality Challenge. The Star Quality Challenge is a scene where you have to memorize lines, and the festive face-off is a competition, whether it's physical, an obstacle course, or making Christmas cards to Christmas sweaters to a Santa outfit. And I made it all the way to the finale. And
great.
no one knows these, but whenever we do these scenes with guest judges, you have 1 take. So we treated everything like an audition process in a room, just in front of national TV. You have 1 take. If you mess up, you forget your lines, something. That's it. You have
Oh.
1 take only.
Well, I mean, it teaches you to go off the cuff then, or work with where you are in that scene, I assume. Right?
Yes.
So now, where do you go from here after having this major experience, a bit of a competition, a new brotherhood, some more acting chops on your resume? Where do you go?
Well, my wife and I were thinking, what's next? Well, this is going to bring a lot of abundance and opportunities, but we also want to be near our family. So we decided to move back to Charlotte. And once we knew we were moving to Charlotte, we found out we were having a kid.
Oh my gosh.
And we're excited that our family is growing. And I got new agents, I got new managers, and they told me, look, we don't care where you are. We're happy to represent you. So I know that after the year ends, this new chapter is just going to be wonderful, and I'm excited for what's next.
Oh, wow. Felicidades, first
Gracias.
of all. I mean, isn't that great, though, that so many people, you've got this whole team behind you, call Charlotte home base, and you'll just travel for
Yes.
projects, I assume?
We're basically bi-coastal. I left my
Okay.
car. I have friends that are like, you're welcome anytime. And we're telling ourselves we're bi-coastal. So
Bi-coastal. All right. What is, I think the takeaway here, too, is your story, Angel. Migrating from Venezuela and having English as a second or
Yes.
third language, and then to have these dreams and go for it and succeed. What do you tell your child, 20, even less than 20 years from now?
I've been through so much these last 39 years. I've seen it all, experienced it all. I've been bullied. I've had money. I had not money. It's so much. I will tell my kid and everyone out there that's listening, be yourself. Trust yourself. Love yourself. And know that God has a purpose for you. Like, time is everything. Just know that things are always going to turn out the way it's supposed to, and the sun is going to shine bright.
Do you feel like you were tested and this was all for a reason?
Yes, everything is a test. You get stronger, and no matter how fast you go down, it's about how fast you can get up and keep moving forward.
It sounds like a Hallmark movie plot. What a great Hallmark message for Christmas. So, what can you say about this movie that is going to come out for the winner from
Yes.
Finding Mr. Christmas won the role?
I know.
Right?
I wish
Try not
it
to
was.
give you some spoilers.
I wish it was my movie. But I love Craig, the winner of Finding Mr. Christmas. He makes a movie and gets to act with all these wonderful stars from Hallmark, and his movie comes out Saturday. And right after the movie, the reunion happens. We have a reunion where all the contestants get together, and we get to talk about behind the scenes, how the show was, and everything. So I'm excited about that.
We are excited for you. Charlotte, I'm going to call you a Charlotte native.
Thank you.
Charlotte native, actor, athlete. Did you play
I
sports?
play sports, yeah.
You still play sports?
I still play soccer on the weekends, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, do you watch FC Charlotte? Charlotte FC?
Yes.
Yeah, you like?
All my friends here in Charlotte are fans, and they're like, bro, once the season starts, we're going to go to all the games. And
Oh,
so I'm
very
excited.
good. You got all these kinds of plans. I love it. Angel, thank you for gracing us with your story, and yeah, you do us proud. So fun
Thank
to
you.
see you and have you here, and we'll watch for Finding Mr. Christmas. Find him on the streets of the Queen City here. Appreciate you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you all.
All right. We'll be right back on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. President Trump made a speech last night for the nation, and we carried it here on Live Impact News. Alice Barr from NBC News with the latest, recapping that speech here for you on WCNC Plus.
When I took office
President Trump turning to a primetime address to talk up his year one accomplishments at a time when polls show a majority of Americans let down by the state of the economy and the cost of living.
I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast.
The president pinning the blame for persistently high prices on former President Biden, adamant that his policies are working and will bring more relief in the new year.
I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it.
President Trump touted revenue from his global tariffs and announced he's directing some of it toward warrior dividend holiday bonuses for military service members.
In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776.
Though it's Congress's job to decide how tariff revenues are spent, and as lawmakers struggle to reach agreement on bringing down health care costs, with Obamacare subsidies now set to expire in 2 weeks, sending premiums soaring, President Trump again pushed to send money directly to Americans' health savings accounts.
The money should go to the people.
The president also highlighting his immigration crackdown.
And we quickly turned it into the strongest border in the history of our country.
And saying his administration's targeting of alleged drug boats in the Caribbean has driven down dangerous drugs entering the U.S. He did not mention the potential for military conflict with Venezuela, amid mounting calls for transparency and questions from lawmakers in both parties about the campaign's ultimate goals.
All net job creation.
In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Citizens 100%.
Time right now is 10 o'clock, straight up here, top of the hour on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It does appear that the House is in session. We will go to this for you right now and listen in for a minute on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Mr. Chair, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Hurd.
The gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the SPEED Act because it fixes something that people back home understand instinctively. It takes too long to build anything in this country. Water infrastructure, roads, power lines, housing, energy projects. When it takes just a decade to get a permit, families pay more and America falls behind. NEPA was meant to ensure that agencies look before they act, not to function as a litigation strategy to stop reasonable projects. But today, it too often stalls projects and advantages competitors like China. The SPEED Act restores common sense. It focuses on real impacts, ends endless delays, and brings predictability back to permitting. Just as important for me as chairman of the Subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs, it respects tribal reviews and was developed with tribal consultation to ensure that NEPA does not block tribal economic development. This isn't about weakening environmental protections, it's about ending unreasonable delays so America can build again. We can lower energy costs, build reliable infrastructure, and compete globally. The SPEED Act is balanced reform, and it's long overdue. I urge my colleagues to support it. I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have heard over and over again in this debate that this bill is not about lowering environmental standards, and this is another one of those rather remarkable inversions when you actually look at what the bill does. Entire classes of projects are simply eliminated from environmental review. Entire classes of impacts no longer count in an environmental review under this proposed legislation. Certain types of comments that allow people to take part in the public review process and potentially challenge a project are no longer qualifying for them to be part of the public review and legal challenge process. If that is not lowering environmental standards, I don't know what is. But another aspect of this bill should be considered specifically, allowing broad exemptions for grants, loans, and other financial assistance, which this bill does. means that large federally backed projects could avoid triggering a NEPA review, even when those impacts could be very significant. And this includes projects like many federal highways, which were one of the reasons, the original reasons that NEPA was passed, because they often ran right through disadvantaged communities, and those communities didn't even know about the proposed projects, let alone have an ability to require consideration of environmental impacts. So if you just take a look at this image here, this is what happens to transportation projects without NEPA. And so when we hear that this is not about lowering environmental standards, I think it's important to bring it back to the reality of what this bill would do. This is what this bill would do. No environmental review process at all for many of these projects. I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Arkansas.
Mr. Chair, I yield 3 minutes to the gentlelady from Wyoming, Ms. Hageman.
The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today in strong support of modernizing our permitting system through the SPEED Act. While other nations are rushing to win the AI race, build out energy generation, and modernize infrastructure, America is stuck in the 20th century. Our nation's permitting process has been corrupted, morphing from what NEPA was crafted to do into a leviathan designed to do what activists and courts want it to do, transforming from a procedural statute into a hammer to block development and innovation. The resulting lawlessness in the permitting system finally culminated in the 7 counties Supreme Court decision, which provided much-needed relief. Simply stated, and as the court found, there is no reason a rail project should fail because project opponents don't like the commodity that will be shipped on that rail line. An examination of other lawsuits filed under NEPA confirms the frivolous nature of many of them. In the last decade, circuit courts witnessed a 56% increase in NEPA appeals. NGOs instigated over 70% of these challenges, with just 10 organizations filing many of those cases. In these cases, agencies won roughly 80% of the challenges to both environmental assessments and EISs. In other words, agencies are seldom faulted for inadequate environmental review, yet NGOs capitalize on the 6-year statute of limitations to file a lawsuit, slow projects down, increase costs, and finance their organizations through EAJA funds. In recognition of this reality and in line with the 7 counties' decision, this bill clarifies the role of the court over this purely procedural statute and places shot clocks on when lawsuits must be filed and decided. The SPEED Act is project agnostic, which I believe is well reflected in its bipartisan nature, and I am proud to be one of its co-sponsors. Permitting impacts every aspect of our economy. When the system is broken, it is broken for everyone. The SPEED Act will provide the certainty that the system currently lacks and which American industries need. Thank you, Chairman Westerman, for your strong leadership on this crucial piece of legislation. I urge all my colleagues to support it, and I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We hear it over and over again from the other side. NEPA should just be a purely procedural law. Well, a lot of really important things are procedural. MRIs, X-rays, any number of things. Those are procedures, but you don't turn the power off and reduce that very important procedure to a meaningless exercise. That's what this legislation would do. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentlelady from Nevada, Ms. Lee.
The gentlelady from Nevada is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In Nevada, the sun shines more than 300 days a year, and solar is among the cheapest and most abundant sources of energy, not only in my state, but around the country. That's why I'm leading 30 of my colleagues in championing the most supported amendment to the SPEED Act by far to save solar and wind from this administration's war on clean energy. On July 15th, President Trump's Interior Department actively chose to wrap the biggest piece of permitting red tape around the neck of renewable energy sector that we've ever seen, directing the Interior Secretary to personally sign off on every permit to solar and wind energy. In just one example from my state, what would have been the largest solar facility in North America, the administration is making that project jump through 69 hoops 7 times. That's the opposite of efficient. Even my state's Republican government has said that, Republican governor has said that these actions, quote, have not only stopped solar development on federal lands in Nevada, but also on private land where federal approvals are required. More broadly,
some breaking news now out of Dedham, Massachusetts. The trial for Brian Walsh, where he was found guilty of murdering his wife. We now know he was sentenced to life in prison without a chance of parole. This is just outside of the courthouse. That sentencing coming in just moments ago. We expect to hear from attorneys from both sides. If we see that come up on our feed here live, we'll bring that to you here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. And we'll be right back on WCNC Plus. We'll be back in 2 minutes. .10 is the time. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. House Dems are gathering right now the steps of Washington for a press conference speaking on health care. Let's listen in on WCNC Plus.
There is a right and not a privilege for the wealthy. Dr. King told us of all forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and the most inhuman. And the first year of this administration has certainly been shocking and inhuman. At every turn, Trump and his loyalists in the House have chosen injustice. They have made the morally corrupt choice to take health care away from people who work hard for a living to fund tax cuts for the very wealthiest. They were so eager to pass these permanent tax cuts for the billionaire class, they called us back from recess in July, all at the expense of the health and financial security of working families. That is how they have chosen to lead. The Republicans chose to shut down government. They chose to leave town rather than negotiate with us on a solution. They chose to ignore skyrocketing premiums. They chose to build a ballroom for their cronies rather than build a strong middle class. But thanks to the unity of this caucus, the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries, and the resolve of the American people, Democrats have secured a vote on extending the ACA tax credits. The only question that remains is when. And I humbly suggest it should be today. So, Speaker Johnson, don't send us home without a vote. Put this bill on the floor. The American people are watching, and they deserve a vote. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce our leader, Hakeem Jeffries.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, House Democrats, for always showing up, standing up, and speaking up for the American people. And because of the leadership of House Democrats, of this House Democratic Caucus, we've successfully secured a vote with a successful discharge petition to protect the health care of the American people and extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. We're here gathered on the House steps with one last thing remaining. We want to make clear to Mike Johnson that the American people deserve a vote on the Affordable Care Act tax credit legislation and deserve that vote today. No more excuses, no more delay, no more burying your head in the sand. Under no circumstances should the House of Representatives adjourn until we successfully extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans. The American people deserve a vote today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, today. Today. Republicans have had all year to address this health care situation. But they've been too busy trying to jam their extreme agenda down the throats of the American people. Republicans have been too busy enacting reckless tariffs that increase costs on everyday Americans by thousands of dollars per year. Republicans have been too busy gutting the health care of the American people. Republicans have been too busy ripping food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans. Republicans have been too busy enacting massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors. And Republicans have been too busy treating the Congress like it's a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trump cartel. Let me be clear about something. We ain't down with any of that. House Democrats aren't here to bend the knee to Donald Trump. We're here to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice. We believe, as House Democrats, that the cost of living in this great country is far too high, that America is too expensive, that far too many people, working class folks, are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck, can't thrive, can barely survive. That the most important thing that the Congress should be doing is driving down the high cost of living to make life more affordable for everyday Americans. We believe that in this great country, that when you work hard and play by the rules, you should be able to live an affordable life, a comfortable life, to live the good life. Not too complicated in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We believe that when you work hard and play by the rules, you should be able to live the good life. Good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and a good retirement, which means keep your hands off our Social Security and our Medicare at all times. And Democrats believe in this great country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, that access to high-quality health care can't simply be a privilege that's only available to the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. We believe as Democrats that in this great country, health care that's affordable and accessible is a right that should be available to every single American. That's what we believe, and that's what we're fighting hard to achieve. Now, unfortunately, all year, the American people have been dealing with this Republican health care crisis that is devastating everyday Americans. And we're here to call it out. We're here to provide a moment of clarity. Republicans have enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing all across the country, including in rural America, because of toxic Republican policies in their one big ugly bill. Republicans have launched an all-out assault on the Centers for Disease Control, the National Institute of Health, the Food and Drug Administration, on vaccine availability for children, and on public health. And because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are at risk of being unable to go see a doctor when they need one. The Republican health care crisis is unacceptable, unconscionable, and un-American. And our message to Mike Johnson is clear. You can run, but you cannot hide. The American people are horrified. Republican leaders are petrified. But House Democrats are unified, standing up on behalf of the American people to protect their health care. And so we're demanding a vote today on extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, today. And our promise to the American people is that we will continue to fight to drive down the high cost of living, continue to fight to fix our broken healthcare system, and we will continue to stand up for Medicaid, for Medicare, for the Affordable Care Act, for our hospitals, for our nursing homes, for our community-based health clinics, for the health care of every single American. House Democrats are in this fight until we win this fight. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care, and extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits now. God bless you, and God bless the American people.
All right, you're watching live a press conference from Hakeem Jeffries and other House Dems gathering to talk about health care as they push for the subsidies for the American Affordable Care Act still continues. We'll take a break on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. At 10:23 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, take you back out to Washington, D.C., where the House session is underway. Let's listen in here now on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
In their districts, keep the lights on. An analysis by Common Good showed that a 6-year delay in construction on public projects like building roads, something I think we all can agree on, costs the U.S. economy $3.7 trillion. The SPEED Act is supported by over 375 industry leaders ranging from utility companies and energy producers to home builders and domestic manufacturers. These are the industries that will lower everyday costs if we simply allow them to build here in America again. A vote for the SPEED Act is a vote for affordability. As we close, I want to return to the core principle at the heart of this debate and this legislation. The federal permitting process should serve our natural interest, not obstruct them. Let me say that again. Permitting should serve our natural interest, not obstruct our national interest. NEPA no longer passes the test. It is currently a source of waste, abuse, and predatory litigation. Its unpredictability is fundamentally unfair to the local communities, to working families, and to taxpayers who depend on the infrastructure projects that NEPA obstructs. This has never been more true than today when demand for energy is dramatically spiking. America is blessed with resources we need for a future of energy dominance and critical mineral abundance. God has blessed America with minerals and with energy. We're just refusing to use them. Mr. Chairman, we are dependent on China for 90% of our rare earths and critical minerals. That's not just economic insecurity, that's a national defense issue. They mine 70% of those around the world and process and control 90% of them. We have all of them here in America, but we refuse to do the permitting, not just to build mines, but to build refineries that will create jobs for Americans. When we take mined materials out of the ground and we process them and put them into manufactured goods, there's a multiplier effect by 28. It's what USGS and the Department of Commerce says, that we multiply that value by 28. Think of the jobs Americans could have, good paying jobs, if we not only mined here in America, but if we refined and manufactured products from those things that we mine. The SPEED Act is a targeted, bipartisan solution that will restore balance and accountability to the federal permitting process. It will streamline administrative review and curtail open-ended dilatory litigation. These are practical, common-sense reforms that, again, I will say, have garnered the support of more than 375 business, labor, and nonprofit groups from across the country, from all 50 states and Puerto Rico. And Mr. Speaker, we're at a critical point in our country. America has always been a place where we have a can-do attitude. We've always been able to succeed. I like to say we're Americans. We're not Americans, but the current permitting laws are telling Americans they can't. You can't be innovative. You can't develop. You can't build here. You have to be dependent on somebody else, somewhere else. You can't have the jobs to earn good wages. You can't grow your rural communities because we can't get through the bureaucratic red tape and permitting. The SPEED Act is the first step in doing that. We have to pass this bill. We have to get it to the Senate. We have to work with our Senate colleagues because this is an important time in our country, and this is an important piece of legislation. It's an important issue that affects every American, and today's the day to pass the SPEED Act. I urge my colleagues to support the SPEED Act, to get ourselves building again, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. All time for general debate has expired. Pursuant to the rule, the bill shall be considered for amendment under the 5-minute rule. The amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources printed in the bill, and the further amendment specified in Section 5 of House Resolution 953 shall be considered as adopted. The bill as amended shall be considered as the original bill for the purpose of further amendment and shall be considered as read. No further amendment to the bill as amended shall be in order except those printed in House Report 119-410. Each such further amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report. may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, and shall not be subject to demand for division of the question. It is now in order to consider amendment number 1, printed in House Report 119-410. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 1, printed in House Report number 119-410, offered by Mr. Clyde of Georgia.
Pursuant to House Resolution 951, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Clyde, and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of my amendment to H.R. 4776, the SPEED Act, which will improve the bill's judicial standing provision to limit frivolous lawsuits and ensure projects are not delayed by radical activist groups without actual material harm to themselves. This amendment makes a simple but important clarification. It ensures that only material, physical, or property harm, not purely aesthetic, recreational, or emotional interests, qualifies someone to challenge a federal agency action under NEPA. As established by the bill we are considering today, NEPA is a procedural statute. Its purpose is to require federal agencies to disclose and consider environmental effects before taking major actions, not to confer substantive environmental rights or to serve as a tool for endless litigation. The amendment aligns NEPA's judicial review provisions with that core purpose by anchoring standing in concrete, legally cognizant harms rather than subjective or generalized interests. By focusing standing on tangible harms, this amendment helps prevent NEPA from being used as a delay tactic in every dispute over administrative decisions, a tactic that too often slows necessary infrastructure and energy projects without materially improving environmental protection. It ensures that courts remain a venue for adjudicating real disputes where plaintiffs have demonstrable stakes while preserving agency and judicial resources for the most serious and legally grounded claims. At the same time, this amendment does not eliminate judicial review or impede legitimate challenges where there are real impacts. Stakeholders with substantive claims under existing environmental and land management statutes will continue to have full recourse to the courts under those laws. What this amendment does is reinforce NEPA's role as the procedural check that it was intended to be. For these reasons, I urge my colleagues to support my amendment to bring greater clarity and balance to NEPA standing and to promote a more efficient and predictable permitting process consistent with both environmental disclosure and responsible development. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a pretty good example of how even when Team Extreme puts together the most dramatic rollback of America's most important, yes.
Bend. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
I rise in opposition to the amendment.
Is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I was saying, this is a perfect example of how even when Team Extreme puts together the most dramatic rollback of America's most important bedrock environmental law, it's not enough for some factions within the Republican conference. Now, I do oppose this amendment because at its core, it is built on a tired trope. The trope that NEPA litigation is some huge driver of frivolous litigation, and an argument that we hear all too often to justify more and more limits on judicial review to make it harder and harder for the public to participate in the review process and to help oil and gas and other polluting projects. But the facts do not back up this story that we keep hearing. One recent study from the University of Utah found only 1 out of every 450 actions subject to NEPA are ever even litigated. That amounts to 0.23%. And according to a recent Congressional Research Service report, and I quote, historically fewer than 1% of federal actions subject to NEPA have been litigated. So that's important context. The idea behind this amendment that we need to keep layering on more and more restrictions to shut out the public, to eliminate legal challenges, to stop frivolous litigation is overblown, especially in the context of an underlying bill which already imposes dramatic new barriers that make it almost impossible to bring a case to court. Among other hurdles, the underlying bill says you have to have commented during a comment period, even as the Trump administration is restricting the opportunity to comment. It also requires that your comment has to be unique. Now, this is a new term of art. It doesn't exist in current law. We don't even know what it really means. But presumably, if anyone else has submitted the same comment, has flagged the same problem with a federal action, you're out because your comment is no longer unique. And to add a cherry on top of all of that, even if you get into court, the SPEED Act would bind judges, forcing them to allow even dangerous and illegal projects to proceed, making the judicial review process extremely hollow. So judicial review is a cornerstone of democracy, Mr. Chairman. When the government makes a bad decision or an illegal decision, I would hope we could all agree there are times because the government doesn't get everything just right, that citizens need to be able to challenge that action and hold the government accountable to make sure the law is followed. Access to the courts is a backstop for communities who are left out of the NEPA process to make their concerns heard and to ensure that federal government actions properly consider environmental impacts. And though we've heard a lot of fear-mongering about frivolous lawsuits, there are already effective safeguards in place. All plaintiffs have to demonstrate they've actually been harmed by a project to have standing, and NEPA will be meaningless unless there is a way to enforce it when the government does something harmful or illegal. That's what this is all about. I urge a no on this amendment, and I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, any frivolous lawsuits is one frivolous lawsuit too many. It's just not appropriate when we have legitimate.
All right, we will get back to the House in session in just a couple of minutes. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Time right now is 10:38. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We are going to go to Texas right now, where they are doing coverage, anchored coverage. This might be a little pre-package, yes, as they are getting ready to launch New Shepard's 37th space flight. And what makes this remarkable is that if it does launch today, Blue Origin launched the first wheelchair user to space. So let's go ahead and listen into their anchored coverage that is now underway on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Command engine start. 2, 1.
What a credible experience. That video is just a taste of what our Astros experienced during their time out in West Texas.
Yeah, now, you know, the experience you can see is really something that we emphasize. We've built the astronaut experience with the authenticity of Texas, and I can tell you that is absolutely true because I am from Texas, and every time I'm out there and I'm at Astronaut Village, I feel like I'm back at home. Now, essentially, we want our astronauts to really embrace that natural beauty of the West Texas desert life.
I mean, that includes the boots, cowboy hats, denim. When you come here, you're going to feel like a space cowboy or space cowgirl. Well, next, one thing we want to focus on is how New Shepard has been designed with accessibility first mindset. We have the distinct pleasure of flying Mihi today, but Mihi isn't the first and won't be the last individual that we fly with a disability.
No, so let's also talk about how we've been able to help others accomplish their dreams with New Shepard, because we've made a lot of improvements since we started the program. Since 2023, our Crew Member 7 team out there in West Texas, they have been hosting special astronaut training workshops. Now, this is something that they've worked on with our business resource group, New Hawking. And for those who don't know, New Hawking essentially supports our Blue Origin teammates with disabilities. They're also doing great work to build acceptance and create better accommodations for people with disabilities, whether they're joining Blue or going through training or just in their everyday work life. The CM7s have also hosted one workshop with Astro Access, a project dedicated to promoting disability inclusion in humanity space exploration by paving the way for disabled astronauts. In fact, Blue Origin was actually nominated this year at the Global Space Awards for Partnership of the Year with Astro Access.
And during those workshops, the crew was able to work with and learn from individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing, low vision and blind, and those who are living with limited mobility. So yeah, taking what we've learned from those workshops, New Shepard has successfully flown the oldest man and oldest woman to space, as well as multiple individuals over 90 years old, and even individuals who identify as blind, hard of hearing, and even some with limited mobility.
Now, some of the changes that we have made include improving the harnesses to make them, work easier for individuals who have limited mobility or limb differences. And as we've shown on a couple of our launches too, we also have an elevator at the tower, which helps our Astros avoid having to climb the 60 feet to reach the capsule level. So a lot of great improvements for accessibility. Now, based on our commitment and work to enable more people to fly, NS-37 needed no alterations for the vehicle for today's launch, where we will watch Mihi, who will become the first wheelchair user to ever cross the Kármán line. And that's because from its inception, the baseline design of our New Shepard crew capsule had accessibility.
All right, we'll get you back to T-minus 19 out of West Texas in just a few minutes, because right now we want to talk to the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department that is celebrating a major milestone. 50 years, the anniversary of its Explorers Christmas project, and this year's celebration comes with an expanded mission. So joining us right now is CMPD Officer Jasmine Nivens. Thank you for joining us here,
Absolutely.
Officer.
Thank y'all for having me.
So what is this need like? What is the project for the Explorers Christmas project like?
Yes, so a little backstory on our CMPD Christmas Explorers project program. This has been something that we've we've done since 1974. We identify throughout the year families that are in need, families that need support during the holidays, whether it's from a low-income standpoint or just anything that that the family or that the children have experienced, such as a traumatic incident or anything like that. These are families that we identify that are in need during the holidays, and we are able to give them Christmas, or able to assist them in Christmas by donations that you all give. So all patrol divisions are involved in this, and it's just a way to spread a little bit of Christmas cheer to those that are in need during the holidays.
It started out as a modest project, and now, right, so many families, thousands of families. How have things changed in the last 5 decades for the program?
So it has grown tremendously. As a matter of fact, we have approximately 1,000 more children that we're supporting this year in comparison to last year. That being said, donations are down. And so we are at an extreme need for this final push for additional donations. So we're pushing really hard. We're about $30,000 short this year. So, you know, if you have it in your heart to make a donation, whether it's a donation of a toy or whether it's a monetary donation, whether you work for a large company, you own a large company, or if you're just someone who likes to give big, any little bit counts, from the smallest donation of one toy to the largest donation of whatever you can donate. It really would help.
It does help. And the contribution now to our neighbors and friends in Western North Carolina, just adding to the mission and how special it is.
Right, yes.
So, and they're still struggling out there. This expanded effort, though, I mean, it's putting a strain on CMPD as far as gathering toys and trying to get these donations going?
Right. So we're doing a few pop-up events this weekend. One is tomorrow on South Tryon Street, at the Walmart on South Tryon Street in Whitehall Shopping Center. So, you know, they'll be out there for until about 7 p.m. So you can drop in, make your donation. You can bring a toy, or you can go in the Walmart and buy a toy or any item, because also we're supporting kids from birth to seniors in high school. So oftentimes people forget about our adolescent community, the teens that we're supporting. So anything that a teenager could use, nails, press-on nails, lotion, lip gloss for young men, any kind of grooming kit, headphones, LED lights, anything like that. So that's one of our drop-off locations or pop-up events. On Saturday, there'll be a pop-up in Blakeney Shopping Center in the southern area of Charlotte. So you can go out there. They'll be set up close to Jenny's ice cream shop in the center of Blakeney. Also, you can drop off at any police division in the city of Charlotte. So any of our 13 stations or divisions you can drop off, and then also our fire stations are drop-off locations as well. Of course, our headquarters at 601 East Trade Street as well, and then lastly our training academy at 1770 Shopton Road.
Many opportunities to help out and make your impact count.
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure, Officer Nivens, that we have the right dates of these pop-up events.
Yes.
When are they?
So the Walmart pop-up, along with KISS 95.1 and Power 98, that will be tomorrow, Friday, December 19th, 2025. And then the Blakeney pop-up toy drive for our program will be Saturday, December the 20th. Yes, and also we do have an Amazon registry, so if you're unable to leave the house, you can Google Amazon CMPD Christmas Explorers Project. You can make a donation there as well, and that'll be delivered directly to our headquarters.
Okay, very good. So there are so many ways that you can make an impact to our community in a positive way. We're running out of time, though, right? And they need, what, $30,000 worth of toys?
Yes.
So,
and the monetary donation can be made on cmpd.org. Go to community engagement and programs. You can click on that, scroll down to the Christmas Explorers Project, and click the donate now tab.
All right. Good old cash money works.
Yep.
The money, the toys, so many places, so many ways that you can help make an impact on this Charlotte community. Officer Jasmine Nivens, she will also be talking to our friends there at Charlotte today, coming up at the top of the hour. But appreciate you stopping in here first on Live Impact News.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll be right back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Back here now on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, we take you back out to the Blue Origin launch. Anchored coverage T-minus 10 minutes there for the first user in a wheelchair to go into space. That's what makes today's launch remarkable. And let's go ahead and listen in on Live Impact News.
And it's just so awesome to be able to learn from them, especially as we continue to fly New Shepard more and more.
They are such an important part to the New Shepard launch, and they are also amazing people.
Yeah, they certainly are. Now, if you take a look on your screen, we're at T-minus 10 minutes, and you are seeing that we have entered a hold. Now, you are looking at New Shepard on the pad. You can also see friends and family member there excited for this launch. Again, the crew of NS-37 includes Joey Hyde, Hans Koningsman, Neil Milch, Adonis Peroulis, Jason Stansell, and disability advocate Mihi Benhouse, who will make history today as the first wheelchair user to cross the Kármán line. We're going to take a moment. We're going to throw it over to the rocket, and we will see you back here in just a second.
All right, as we wait for Mission Control to take back the mic here, you're just watching some spectators surround the launch pad there in West Texas. Blue Origin set to launch the first wheelchair user to space. And if it has happened, it is going to be the first person who uses a wheelchair to reach space. This is the next human space flight getting ready. T-minus 10 as it is in a hold right now. So you can see on your screen among the 6 passengers to ride here along the New Shepard rocket's 37th space flight. They did not explain why they put a hold on this, but we are just monitoring the picture there. Looks like it's blue skies and clear.
It looks nice to me.
Looks like a beautiful day in West Texas.
Looks like it's around 60-something degrees there, cloudy sky. I mean, looking beautiful to me.
Beautiful. We always usually end up watching the astronauts walk across that platform jetway into the capsule. But as we await for some mission control there, or the anchor coverage.
Friends,
we'll
welcome
hold
back.
Here
You are watching NS37. We're at T-minus 10 minutes right now. We are in a hold.
Let's go ahead and listen
and
in.
while we're in this hold, I want to talk about our previous flights. There have been 15 previous flights where we have carried crews of astronauts to space, and on every single flight we hear the incredible reactions from our passengers and the profound effect that it has on them.
And today, Out of the Blue, which is the name that our crew has named themselves, will add 6 more Astros crossing the Kármán line.
Capsule.
Go.
Holy
Booster.
Is this wild?
Go.
Each person that goes up there.
Oh my golly, this is nuts!
Ground. Go.
All of a sudden has a totally different perspective. Wow, look at that view.
Capcom. Go.
Of this little place here.
New Shepard is go for launch.
This is heaven!
It's almost like an out-of-body experience.
New Shepard has cleared the tower.
This is a new era where people like a teacher from North Carolina gets to go to space.
Space has always been something I've wanted to do, but it's never been accessible until now.
Look at that view. Look at the view.
It's just unbelievable. You have to see it with your eyes to really, really take it in. Everybody else should go to space.
Look at the Earth, just look outside. Look at the Earth. We're in space.
This is a life-changing experience. Everybody needs to do this.
It was absolutely insane. I mean, it's the coolest thing ever. Oh my word. I'm just spinning.
That was enlightenment.
This is the best experience of my life, by far. Everyone in the world deserves to see this. Everyone needs to see this. Oh my God.
It's just a dream come true. I want to do this my entire life.
I just went to space as the first woman from Mexico.
I think we need to give this gift of perspective to everybody.
Oh man, this is so cool. I always said I'm going to do it, and I just did it. We went to space!
What you have given me is the most profound experience I can imagine. I can't believe this.
As soon as you land, you will want more of it.
All right now you are looking at New Shepard out on the launch pad. This is NS37, and we are currently in a hold due to upper level winds. We will have a new T0 that will be forthcoming here shortly, but in that meantime, let's go ahead and toss it back over to the rocket. Again, an exciting day for our NS37 crew, which includes Joey Hyde, Hans Koningsman, Neil Milch, Adonis Peroulis, Jason Stansell, and disability advocate Mihi Benthouse.
All right, so you heard the reason for the hold for the Blue Origin launch there in West Texas. We are coming up on 11 o'clock on Live Impact News. Charlotte Today is up next, but Blue Origin will continue on our secondary channel. So with that, you can go out of the app, or not out of the app, stay on this app, out of this main channel, and there's a secondary channel on your WCNC Plus app, and we will be carrying the continuation of the Blue Origin launch out of West Texas, sending the first user who uses a wheelchair up into space. Have a great day. See you on WCNC Charlotte News at 4.